in, come on in. We sure like to welcome everybody here to our teaching of pronunciation interest group webinar, one of many that we offer per year through CATISOL. And I'm Marcia Chan. I'm pleased to be here with my co-coordinators, Patrick.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
And Donna.
So happy to be here and hello to everyone.
Right. And so you participants, if you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourselves in the chat? You can tell us your name and location, where you are, what levels of learners do you teach? And welcome everybody, members and non-members of CATISOL, as well as of our Teaching of Pronunciation Interest Group, the most active IG in our organization. Wouldn't you say, Donna, Patrick?
Oh yeah, for sure.
For sure. Yeah,
By
we're go-getters.
far.
We love our profession. We love teaching English to language learners, and we love talking about instruction of speaking and listening and everything attached to that, particularly pronunciation. Who knows the answer to this question? What year did TOP start?
I have no clue.
Not
Okay,
either.
there's no clue.
Marcia, you must know though, Marcia, right? Since you're asking the
I
question.
do know it as a founder, I do know, but I'm just curious to know if anybody else knows. Anybody else know the answer? Ding, 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 ding. Okay, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is 2013. That is the year that we started this particular IG. IGs come and go with the organization according to our interest, and this has been powerful ever since we started in 2013. So we're going to be listening to Patrick pretty soon talking about designing web-based activities for self-paced learning, which he says is made easy. All right, pronunciation practice made easy. That sounds something that every teacher of pronunciation would like to know about. Now, if you are a part of our CATISOL organization, you're a member, a paid up member, remember it's only $30 a year for wonderful benefits. Then you can be part of our membership or committee, or what's called a group or committee group called the CATISOL Top. And you can get messages and send messages through CATISOL Top at catisol.org. If you are a Facebook member, all you have to do is search for Teaching of Pronunciation and you will find us. For finding out what we have done in the past for these many years, remember from 2013 until now, you can go to our Top Padlet. And the Top Padlet is something where you can find who who the coordinators have been over the years, and many of the presentations that we have given, especially the ones that are recorded online, and video recordings are available to review. And some also have links to slide presentations. So make that one of your favorites, your Top Padlet. You know that we're one of many IGs, interest groups at CATISOL, and interest groups are one of many types of groups. We have levels and we have chapters. And if you subscribe to our channel on YouTube, then you can see recordings of webinars given by levels, chapters, and interest groups. So that's another YouTube channel that you might want to be a subscriber to. You remember that we've had some terrible wildfires, disastrous ones, and I think there are still new ones going on in Southern California. We have created through our sister organization, the CATISOL Education Foundation, a disaster relief fund to support our members who have been displaced by the LA wildfires. And we have a place to donate at catisoleducationfoundation.com. Upcoming in October, we have our annual state conference for the entire organization. And this is happening at Chabot College in Hayward, October 17th and October 18th. So now I'd like to give it over to Patrick. So Patrick Mrozek, as you know, is one of our co-coordinators, a graduate of Cal State LA's MA program in TESOL, and he's now an ESL instructor at Portland Community College and Clackamas Community College. And you know, that's in Oregon. So it doesn't matter. We do everything according to our interests. It doesn't matter whether you live in California or not. And he loves specializing in pronunciation instruction. So he's going to share with us some his tools that he's been using to support autonomous pronunciation practice. So at this point, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Patrick.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Marcia, and thank you all for coming and deciding to begin your weekend with this presentation. I'm really excited to speak in front of you. Some of you might actually recognize the similarity between the title of today's presentation and a talk I gave in this same group a few months back with my colleague from PCC, Kate Carney, about H5P and about on the topic of a project that we did at PCC with asynchronous pronunciation instruction. So I'm envisioning this as a sort of part two, where I'll be able to further explore the possibilities of the tool, finally share some resources, some reusable activities and links to resources that aren't proprietary that everyone could use and incorporate in their classes, and also report on a quantitative study that we did with 12 different groups of ESOL students at PCC, just to see if using the tool has led to any statistically significant effects. So I will start by speaking about the rationale for asynchronous practice and creating these types of exercises in H5P. And then I will introduce the tool. I'll show you several types of content that can be created easily with H5P and with HTML as well. I'm going to show you how to create these assignments and reuse them, because a lot of the exercises I'll be sharing with you, they can be easily embedded into your own materials, integrated with the LMS that you're using with your students, and reused free of charge. And then I will present the results of a quasi-experimental study that we did at PCC to see if there is any effectiveness to the tool. I will share a master list of some really great H5P activities for pronunciation with you towards the end of this meeting, and then hopefully we'll have time for a quick Q&A as well. So my rationale for exploring the tool was that in the community college setting, especially at the school where I'm teaching, pronunciation instruction is limited. We've got 2 sections per term of designated pronunciation classes. I teach one of them, and my colleague teaches another. And just to we can compare that to up to 25 sections of regular listening and speaking communication classes full of students. And even in those classes, there are priorities besides pronunciation, such as vocabulary development, presentation skills, listening, comprehension skills. So we really wanted to bring more pronunciation instruction to our classes. And even in the designated classes that we have, the L1s are varied. Just last term, I was teaching a class with students from 16 different countries and 9 different L1s. And of course, that affects the pronunciation points that will be taught or should be taught. I've had situations where a certain pronunciation point would be extremely beneficial to learn for just one student in the group, but of course I would not cover it for 2 weeks of instruction. Now, what are the alternatives? to these classes or to developing your own materials? Well, there's costly apps that tend to prioritize native speaker accent development, such as Bold Voice and Elsa Speech, and they're wonderful, but for my population of students, for example, the cost of these apps is prohibitive, and also there is no way for us instructors to um, adjust the curriculum of these apps. Textbook exercises have no immediate feedback. And then what some other instructors do at PCC, for instance, is sending, and what I've done as well to a degree, is having students record themselves and send their recordings to their instructor for feedback. But then that, of course, is time intensive to grade. So we recognize the pressing need for free, self-guided, I'm just going to move my one of my windows here, self-guided instructional materials and automated feedback for at-home individualized practice, so that I could have a repertoire of resources that I can recommend to specific students or specific cohorts of students, so that they can improve their pronunciation or work on improving their pronunciation as they take part in regular listening and speaking classes, as well as the designated pronunciation classes that we have. So this is where H5P comes in. It's this acronym stands for HTML5 package. It is an open source platform for creating interactive learning content. Now, the code is free. It is an open source code that anyone can develop on, but hosting options vary. So even though H5P advertises itself as completely free, there are no true free options for instructors, unfortunately, to create exercises and post them and have students use them. But there's a few good options, and depending on where you teach, some of them will be free for you as well. So, for instance, Portland Community College pays for teacher accounts at h5p.com, and that website includes full online editors and hosting, and many universities and colleges in the United States and internationally actually give instructors access to h5p.com these days. There's a free testing website, h5p.org, with limited types of content that can be used, but it's free of charge, and it can be used to create some exercises for students. The best option, I think, for independent instructors without the backing of an institution is the Lumi editor. This is a website that includes a full editor, just like h5p.com, and hosting as well. So tasks can be created and shared with students for the low cost of $4.20 a month. So I think this is probably the best option for instructors whose institutions do not pay for h5p.com accounts. And apparently, H5P also comes as a free plugin for Moodle, regardless of the institution, and WordPress, Drupal, and Pressbooks. So if you're working with OERs in Pressbooks or creating Pressbooks, then you might be able to, you will be able to access H5P through these platforms. And let me tell you, it's worth it, because the types of content that can be used with this package ranges from interactive presentations through listening discrimination practice, script highlighting exercises, quizzes, dictations, and speech recognition with automated feedback. I believe that last time I spoke about H5P for TOP, I only really touched upon speech recognition with automated feedback. And today I'd like to show you the other possibilities as well. And finally, I will share a simple speech-to-text tool that's completely free, and it's just a little bit of HTML code that can be pasted into your pages on any LMS, Learning Management System, and it allows the students to track how their speech is interpreted by speech recognition as they speak. So let me now let me show you some of these types of content in action. And what I have here is a list I compiled of publicly available H5P pronunciation activities. Some of them are made by myself and others made by the instructors at Iowa State University, as well as a really wonderful research page from eCampus Ontario. But I will share this page with you later. Now let's take a look at different types of activities that can be created. So starting with interactive presentations. This is a really good one from eCampus Ontario about content words. So you'll see that students can move through these slides as if it was a PowerPoint or a Google Slides presentation, learn about content words, but also interactive exercises are integrated into this presentation. So right after learning about nouns and adjectives and verbs and adverbs, they can, sorry, for now just nouns and adjectives, they can do a little exercise where they get to mark these types of parts of speech in the text and check if they were correct. And then they can move on to the next slide, learn about the content of word types of verbs and adverbs. And again, we have a script marking activity, clicking on the question words and negatives. And then towards the end, we also have a different activity where students see two columns, content words, function words, and they get to sort these example words into the two categories. And this entire thing was created with the H5P editor. This is just one type of activity, and it could be this type of activity. If you already have the text, or if you already have the presentation in Google, can be or PowerPoint can be created very quickly. Another use of H5P, I think that I really appreciate is making listening discrimination practice activities. So, for example, this is something I created for the contrast of the white tie vowel and the black cat vowel. I used the color vowel chart nomenclature because of the relatively low level of my students. So here I had one student in my class that could benefit from learning more about this contrast. And I wasn't able to find really good materials for that student, so I very quickly created exercises on my own and recommended just these exercises to practice for that particular student. So here I attached a recording of myself saying one of these two words, died. Right, and you could probably hear that I said this word, and the student can check if that was the correct one, and then move on to other words, dad, and check themselves for listening discrimination. And that creating this assignment took me less than 30 minutes. I recorded my voice with an iPhone and then shared the files with my computer, and then very easily created this type of quiz in H5P. The third type of activity is script highlighting, and you could already see a little bit of that in this presentation because it includes some script highlighting exercises. For instance, click on the content words, flat, grasslands, Western Canada, called, prairies, much, Canada's famous, and so on. But then here we have a resource from a reusable, publicly available Mark the Words activity from Iowa State University, where students listen to a poem first,
very, very like me from the heels up to the head. And
And then select the words that are stressed and leave the unstressed words deselected, right? I have a little shadow. Um, well, I'm not exactly sure which ones those are here. I have, but you get the picture. This type of activity is really wonderful when teaching content and function words as well as prominence focus words. Another type, which is a really pretty, oh, and one last thing is this ability to create um, activities where marking can be done on top of images that we can upload. And this is wonderful because this allows us to have students mark just certain parts of words, right? So here, for example, we want them to mark certain vowels in a text. So as opposed to creating an H5P activity with the mark the words type, here we're just uploading images of text or sentences and have students click on just the let's see, for instance, here, wishes, and just the fragments of words that we want them to mark, we want them to notice. So that's a subset of the script highlighting exercise type. Then we have quizzes, and I think for quizzes I'm going to move to a different tab I have open. So here, for instance, in my pronunciation class, I created a little page about vowel spelling and sound correspondence and taught my students just a few simple rules. And I'm not a big fan of the short, long vowel nomenclature because English hasn't really had that for 500 years, but just helping students connect what I'm teaching to some other resources. Um, so after teaching them these rules here, I have just a very simple quiz where I can ask questions. What vowel sounds are these words pronounced with? Bat, fat, and last. And students get to choose one of the color vowel chart designations that I've taught them. And then let's take a look. Um, Something that I really love as well is that these quizzes can be answered with the student's voice as well. So let me very quickly switch my windows a little bit, or switch between windows. So here we have another wonderful activity from Iowa State University where students learn about the Windy City of Chicago. And there's an H5P quiz where they have to answer questions, but using H5P speak the words capability. So the question here is, what lake is Chicago located on? And to practice, for instance, the sh consonant, I can record my voice, say Lake Michigan, and that's going to read as incorrect right now because it grabbed the previous part, right, of my sentence, record my voice, say Lake Michigan. But I can retry it and only say Lake Michigan. Oh, Michigan. There you go. What? So I did say the word right, but I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to say the word lake. Then let's move on to dictations. So down here we have a dictation for the and ah contrast. My first language is Polish. I'm originally from Poland. This has always been the hardest vowel contrast for me. So I really like that we have this type of exercise here. So here students can listen to a word
doc,
and write down whether they understood it as dock or duck.
duck.
And I think I'm right. Let's check. Oh, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, I was correct with doc and duck. So all sorts of dictations, not just single words, but also full sentences. And I'm going to show you how to create this type of exercise later on in this presentation. And then we've got two types left, speech recognition with automated feedback and speech to text tools. So for automated feedback, here is another one of the set of exercises I created for the white tie and black cat distinction. So after the students learn about spelling, sound correspondence, and practice their listening discrimination, then they can record some words. So for example, if I try to say, like that student of mine I mentioned, if I try to say back, then that's going to recognize back. That's going to recognize it more as back, right? But then what I'm trying to get the student to say is that clear I white tie vowel. Bike. And I'm getting a correct answer. This can be done with single words, and it can also be done with full sentences. Now, the caveat here, and something that we've realized, and by we I mean myself and other instructors at PCC who are part of the original pronunciation H5P project, is that longer sentences are a little bit harder for students mm, to to prove that that they've acquired a certain segment because um, intonation and other segments can come in play, and also these longer getting correct feedback or accurate feedback on longer sentences requires a fast internet connection so that there are no interruptions. But for instance, here we have the sentence, the woman drank strong coffee, which I created for a student to practice consonant clusters. And again, push to speak, read the sentence, and then get feedback. So for example, if I said, the woman drank strong coffee, then this interprets my sentence as the woman jank or jank, one of these. And this is exactly the type of error that my student was making. My student whose L1 was Mandarin was having trouble with that middle R sound in the word drank. And finally, I wanted to show you this little speech to text tool that I found as free HTML code that can be pasted into any page that you create in your LMS. So let's take a look here at this other activity. This was for a student to practice the distinction between the aleph sock vowel and the rose coat vowels. And with the speech to text, after clicking start listening, I can read whatever text has been provided to me by my instructor and then see how that is interpreted by speech recognition. And that's not even H5P. That's just a very little piece, a tiny piece of code that can be reused. So let me demonstrate the use of this tool. Lara had been feeling stressed from work, so she planned a trip to a nice hotel by the beach. She made a list of things to pack, bought a new clothes. Sorry, I was trying to make errors on purpose. But you can see that whatever I'm saying is being registered down here, and the student gets to compare the model to their speech. So that would be the final type of content that so far I've been able to create with these HTML tools. Now, going back to the main presentation. Now you might be asking, how can we create these types of exercises? Well, here I will share these slides with you, but I have a list of different types of activities in H5P and what they're called in the editor, be it the h5p.com official editor or the one that you can use at a lower cost at lumi.edu. So we've got course presentations, quiz question sets, mark the words or image hotspot, dictation, and then for automated speech recognition feedback, the type of activity is called speak the words. So I'd like to very quickly demonstrate how I create an activity in H5P. So for example, let's keep it. I'm going to show you how I created some of those white tie and black cat activities. So I would go to my h5p.com account, add content, and this is what the standard H5P editor looks like. So this is going to look the same whether you're using a plugin in Pressbooks or whether you're using Lumi or h5p.org, the testing tool, or h5p.com. And for example, what I want to create is a listening discrimination activity. Well, I would find the quiz question set activity type. I'm going to call this white tie and black cat listening activity. In the quiz introduction, of course, I can just write some introduction text if I want. But then I am going to choose multiple choice. I am going to call this word number 1. I am going to add my short recording. And I'm just dragging and dropping from my desktop. I'm going to write down the question. Which word did you hear? Life or laugh? And then the available options will be life. I'm going to mark this as correct. And laugh. And now I can just save this assignment. And let's see if I'm sharing my sound. I am sharing my sound. I'm going to listen to the recording that I uploaded.
Life.
I'm going to click live. I'm going to check. And that literally took me 3.5 minutes. Of course, I already had a recording ready. But again, this is a very intuitive tool, and there's plenty of documentation online and instructional videos that can help you get started and can help you create all this kind of content that I've shown you today, all the different types of content. And actually, maybe at this point, one more thing before I go into some. I take a look at the questions in the chat. How do we reuse this type of content? So if you look at the list that I'll be sharing with you, for instance, you can see that we have links to all different kinds of activities. So for example, if you'd like the students to practice the S endings, we can use this activity as a link. If content is public, you can just share a link with your students. That would be the easiest thing. And then this public content can be used by any student. However, if we click on embed first, then you can use this embeddable code to paste it into your LMS, just to have it incorporated into your presentation. But I think the best part of these exercises is that if they're public, they can be reused, meaning you can download an H5P file, upload it into your LMS, and that way you can also keep track of grades. Because if I upload this file into my LMS, then whenever a student interacts with a given exercise, their scores appear in my grades for the particular course. So that's a really wonderful way to track who's doing the exercises, how they're doing, whether they're getting corrects or incorrects. There are even options where you can see what their last attempt was as opposed to their best attempt. So when you see H5P exercises online like this, or use the ones that I've provided links to in the list, you can either share them as links with your students, you can embed them into any documents that you've created on your LMS or on websites for students, or you can reuse the content to keep track of grades as well. So right now I would want to pause my presentation and take a look at comments and possibly questions. Oh, thank you so much for all the nice comments.
Everybody thinks it's so wonderful and exciting and so practical. So it's great that you are sharing this with us. I think that, there's been an enormous improvement over these long years of making this sort of capability, which helps teachers like us who want our students to be able to do these kinds of exercises. But as you say, it's so hard to differentiate when we have students from different language backgrounds with different needs. And now this gives us an opportunity to do such, to make such targeted kinds of learning apps, learning items.
Most definitely. And just to quickly address Ainur's question, I have an iPhone. I just use the voice memos app. I think that's the quality is sufficient for the purpose. But then whichever app is of your preference, that'll depend on what tools you have at your disposal. But as long as you can get it to work with create an MP3 or WAV file, then that's going to work for H5P. Oh yes, and activities for advanced level, definitely. I think the list that I will share with you, it's got activities for lower levels and more advanced levels throughout the spectrum. So stay tuned for that link. Now, in the final part of my presentation, I actually wanted to talk about a study that we have done at PCC to determine whether this is effective in any way. And the study had plenty of limitations because based on the policy or because of the policies that the college has, we weren't able to track individual students' progress. We only focused on group tendencies. And of course, at PCC, the cohorts that we worked with, they had different instructors, and these instructors supplemented instruction in different ways. But I would still like to present our findings, because I think that even when controlled for all these external factors, the results are cautiously optimistic. So what we did is we identified through a large-scale diagnostic assessment that suprasegmental features were the main barriers to comprehensibility for our students. And like I mentioned earlier, our synchronous class time was limited for pronunciation training. So we had the goal of providing equitable, scalable, asynchronous pronunciation support. And our solution was the pronunciation project tool, which now it is live, and we now call it the pronunciation helper. But that included video instruction plus high variability input, guided practice, and speech recognition feedback, all delivered asynchronously through D2L and H5P. So that the guided practice part and the speech recognition utilized these types of activities that I showed you earlier. Our research questions were whether using the pronunciation project tool as homework improved comprehensibility and or accentedness more than standard instruction over 10 weeks. Secondly, whether the gains varied by ESOL level. We had students from levels 5, 6, and 7, and whether the gains differed between read aloud and spontaneous speech tasks. Our participants were student enrolled in ESOL communication classes at 3 levels of proficiency with various L1s. We had 12 cohorts total, and we divided them into 6 control cohorts and 6 experimental ones. The levels were from PCC level 5 to 7, which roughly corresponds to low B1 to low C1. The raters were communication students enrolled in communication classes at PCC, and most of them were native speakers of English. We had a 10-week intervention. Both groups received some limited regular in-class pronunciation instruction because those were communication classes and not designated pronunciation classes. The control group students received pronunciation homework at their instructor's discretion, but the experimental group students, for their pronunciation related homework, they covered 8 modules of the tool that we developed with H5P exercises. Every week, they were assigned one of the modules and the speech recognition exercises. Now, we tested them with a pre-test and a post-test. Our students read 10 sentences aloud, and these were the same sentences from the pre-test to the post-test. And also, we tested their spontaneous speech at 1 minute with 1 minute samples. We measured outcomes with 9-point Likert scales for comprehensibility and accentedness. And again, a serious limitation of our study was that recordings were anonymous. We couldn't do a matching of individual pre-post scores. So our analysis focused on group level trends. And that's why the N for the study was actually the recordings as opposed to the students. We had 302 recordings balanced across the levels, tasks, and groups. Then we had raters provide 1 to 3 ratings per recording. Unfortunately, not all the raters did their homework, and after removing unidentifiable responses, we ended up with 672 ratings each for comprehensibility and accentedness. So a total of 302 recordings of students were graded or rated. And for our statistical analysis, 2 analyses actually, we used linear mixed effects models with independent variables of group, time, level, and task, with the dependent variables of comprehensibility and accentedness. And we used cohort as a random intercept since the instructors differed per cohort, and we thought that the instructor effect and how they taught pronunciation in class could have made a significant difference here. Now, you can see with overall means that both control and experimental groups had gains in in their performance between the pre-test and the post-test, with the experimental group gain of 0.59 on that 1 to 9 Likert scale, which amounts to 11% improvement in the experimental group. For accentedness, the gains were, as expected, were incredibly small. The control group, on average, seems to have performed worse in terms of accentedness in the post-test. Now, after performing our analyses, we didn't register any significant effects for when controlling for cohort. However, even when with cohort as random effect, the improvement for level 5 experimental students was significant, with a p-number of 0.039. We didn't note any significant effects for group and time and task interaction, and no significant effects of time, group, and task interaction. So how would we interpret these results? Well, there was no broad significant effect of the tool when controlling for cohort, even with that 11% improvement because of noise. But level 5 students in the experimental group showed statistically significant improvement in comprehensibility versus all the control cohorts. So a possible optimistic explanation is that this tool, whose focus was in supersegmentals, aligned well with intermediate learners' needs, and higher levels may have already plateaued, and that's why their improvement wasn't deemed as statistically significant. So because of the study limitations, the study limitations really warrant cautious optimism, but a major institutional implication would be that this is easily replicable in other colleges using LMS and H5P, and might definitely be worth it when focused on lower intermediate learners' needs. So now I'd like to share the file that I created as a sort of master list of activities that are out there. Some of them that I have created and others created by the instructors at Iowa State, and let's take a look. The eCampus Ontario website and some other related activities. So this is, I'm pasting that in the chat so you can already save it and play around with these exercises and hopefully reuse some of them. And I also wanted to point out that the activities from Iowa State, they all come from an OER that was created by John Levis's Applied Linguistics Department, called Teaching Pronunciation with Confidence. And I think Donna or Marcia shared this resource with our group already, but this is a fantastic free textbook created for instructors of pronunciation for English teachers. Each chapter explains in detail the principles of teaching a certain aspect of pronunciation, including segmentals, supersegmentals, and there's a chapter on assessment as well. So the designated audience, the target audience of this resource is ESOL instructors, but each chapter also includes sample activities, and they're really wonderful. Some of them are in H5P, some of them aren't. But for example, a lot of the activities that I showed you today and included in the master list were developed by Agata Guskarowska and are part of the vowels and consonants chapter. So for instance, here we've got, let's take a look. We've got activities for the P, B, and V contrasts. And we've got some, let's take a look. We've got, I think, oh, I feel like the H5P content just hasn't loaded yet. So let me show you. There you go. Yes. So actually all of these contrasts have H5P activities attached to them. For instance, an exercise for the P and B contrast. Are the given words same or different? Where we hear a recording of a native speaker pronouncing a word with two words maybe, but they're identical, or maybe they differ. They're minimal pairs that differ only between these two sounds. So please, I hope that you find the resource useful, and I really encourage you, if you have if you have an H5P account through your institution, or if you'd like to test it out with the h5p.org website, or get an account with Lumi, which is at a very affordable price of only $4.20 per month. I really encourage you to create custom-made exercises for your students, and I think that their response will be really great. So thank you so much, everyone. We're going to share a recording of this presentation, as well as my slides, and again the master list of activities that I've created and found online with everyone registered for this webinar in a few weeks.
Thank you so much, Patrick. That is fabulous, great work, as well as it's so exciting, the kinds of options that we have now to create these exercises. We are all in favor of this tool, and thanks so much for helping us understand more and demonstrating how you can make these exercises of different types. And we're just all kind of thinking, oh, for our learners, what would we put into practice, and how would we manage to do that? Yeah, everybody's chomping at the bit to do this. That's terrific. I'd like to invite you all to next month's presentation by Donna Brinton. So Donna is going to talk to us next week about dispelling pronunciation myths. So what are some of the myths, and why are they myths and not truths? So don't miss a beat. All you have to do is join the topic e-list. Whether you're a member of CATISL or not, you will get an invitation to join us and the link to our next webinar. So we will have one webinar in September. The date is September 19th at noon in California. And in October, we will not have a webinar, since that is the month of our annual state conference. So we'll be back in November, December after that. Thank you, everyone, for your excellent participation, and we'll see you again next month.
Thank you.